NHL teams are all fighting for one thing, and that's the Stanley Cup. But how does your team actually make it to the Stanley Cup playoffs? Welcome back to Breaking the Ice, the NHL Basics series where I'm teaching you everything you need to know to get started being a fan. Today, we're talking about how the league is set up, how the point system works, and how your team actually makes it into the Stanley Cup playoffs. The NHL is made up of 32 teams, with 25 of those based in the US and 7 of those based in Canada. These 32 teams are split into 2 different conferences, the Eastern and the Western Conference, and we split them up equally, so there's 16 teams in each conference. Under each of those conferences, we have 2 divisions. The Eastern Conference has 8 teams in the Metropolitan Division and 8 teams in the Atlantic Division, while the 16 teams in the Western Conference are broken up across the Central Division and the Pacific Division. In the regular season, every team plays 82 games, and each of those games has 3 different possible outcomes: a win, a loss, or an overtime loss. In the NHL, we use a point system during the regular season to determine every team's rankings, and points are earned based off of the outcome of every game. 2 points are earned for every win. 1 point is earned for every overtime loss, meaning that the game went to overtime, but that team still lost the game. And 0 points are earned for losses in regulation. So, for example, if your team had a record of 2 wins, 1 overtime loss, and 1 loss in regulation, they would have a total of 5 points. 2 for each of the wins, 1 for the overtime loss, and 0 for that regulation loss. Because of the point system, your team's ranking overall is determined not just by their win-loss record, but their total point standing. So, how does all of that come together when we're talking about making the playoffs? Of the 32 teams in the league, only 16 of those teams will qualify for the Stanley Cup playoffs. The top 3 teams in each division, meaning the Metropolitan, Atlantic, Central, and Pacific, automatically become 12 of those teams that head to the Stanley Cup playoffs. And the other 4 teams are what we call wild cards. Those are the 2 teams in each conference, meaning Eastern and Western, with the most points regardless of what division they're in. And your team's ranking isn't just important for which of the teams make it to the playoffs as a whole, but also what teams they'll actually play when we get to the playoffs themselves. Brackets are determined by your team's overall record, and the better your record is, in theory, your playoff matchups should be easier as you make your way to the Stanley Cup Finals. Because of the point system, every game counts during the regular season, and as you get closer to the playoffs, you'll find as a fan that you start to care a little bit more about the other team's records in your division and your conference. That covers the basics of the NHL point system. Be sure to drop any questions you have about hockey in the comments down below so that I can include them in this series, and be sure to follow along for the rest of the basic series as well as the ups and downs of this NHL season.